All right, so today is May 20th. I will call the Halifax Selectmen 10:30 meeting to order. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So, this morning, we have a 10:30 interview with Jill Carr for the Council on Aging Director, and then we have reorganization of the Board of Selectmen, discussion of format for meetings for Board of Selectmen, vacancies on the Halifax Elementary School Committee and Finance Committee, request by the VFW for Memorial Day celebration, request by Connecting Rods for entertainment license for weekly car shows at Walmart. So we are 2 minutes late for our appointment, and Ms. Carr, if you wouldn't mind. How you doing? I'm Gordon Andrews.
I'm doing good, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hi, I'm Ashley DeSessa.
Hi, Ashley.
So, do you want to start off telling us about what your interest is in the Council on Aging Director and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I have worked in human services for over 25 years. A good bulk of that was working with elders. I worked 10 years at Adult Protective Services in Braintree, and we covered 11 surrounding towns. So I worked closely with Council on Aging on the 11. I think probably most closely with like Braintree, Quincy, and Weymouth, since they had bigger populations. So I'm familiar with, you know, the day-to-day of what happens. I've done a lot of outreach trainings at Council on Aging. I've always had such a passion working with seniors and being an advocate and a voice for a lot of the seniors that might not have a voice. And also, I've always had that philosophy of trying to help elders live as independently as possible, and letting them determine how they want to live, and helping them make that happen. So, and empowering seniors. So I've always loved the Council on Aging. I think it's how they're town related, how the town can get together, get to know the community, and just.
You okay? If you wouldn't mind, we'll just take a quick minute for Troy.
Oh, sure.
Let him get a glass of water.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know it's hard to cough, too, with masks
the mask on.
so it's not very comfortable.
Okay. Sorry for that. No problem. Sorry.
That's quite all right. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of my background. I'm very familiar. That's okay, you can take some more time if you need it.
This mask is killing me.
Just take it off, Troy. If you can't breathe, take it off.
Yeah,
That'll almost scare everybody.
yeah, I'm totally fine, I was vaccinated, so. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything more specific you want to know. I did recently get my master's in order to strengthen my skills regarding social services. So I've history working with all different types of populations. But I think when you work with seniors too, a lot of times you're working with their families too.
Yep.
And I'm very familiar with the resources in Massachusetts. I've worked closely with the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. So I'm familiar how that all works as well.
Okay.
What would you say the most,
I'm sorry?
what would you consider your top achievement in working with elderly and other people?
I would say being a strong advocate, raising awareness, I think is right up there, and advocating for an elder's right to self-determination. Yeah, I think advocacy, I think, sticks out the most.
Yes.
Do you have any experience with handling a budget?
I'm sorry?
Handling a budget?
When it comes to, I guess, budgets, I guess my only experience would be when I was the director, we were constantly needing to be following numbers and maintain a quota, and we would get paid. It got to a point because funding got kind of tricky, and we would get paid for a certain amount of investigations. There were certainly stipulations and policies that we had to follow to make sure that that funding, was still coming in. So it was my job to track and do data collection to make sure that our numbers were where they were supposed to be. And we used to have investigations where there were timetables, where if we didn't, follow the timetable, there could be a financial impact to our department. So I think in budgets, I think that was pretty much the closest I came to. I never worked directly with money, but I think I worked indirectly.
Okay.
Have you applied for any grants or have any experience with writing grants or anything of that nature?
I haven't written grants, but I've worked with others to write grants as part of our department. There was the AAA department where they would write the grants, but a lot of times they were unfamiliar with all the different departments at Salter Elders, so the directors would have to do up their piece. So I kind of played a role, but I didn't write up grants. But I did in grad school. I did have to write up a grant.
What would be your goals as far as staff is concerned with the Council on Aging?
My goal would first to learn from them, try to find out, how Halifax runs. I'm certainly no expert in Halifax, so I'd like to learn, to know about this community, see what the needs are, try to find out the ins and outs of how it works, their day-to-day. I think the goal would too, once I have a grasp or understand how things are run and what the needs are, to set goals where we can expand it and strengthen what you guys have and kind of build upon it.
Have you ever had to fire or reprimand an individual working underneath you?
Yes, I've actually supervised I did all the hiring for my protective service department, so I had 10 investigators. And yeah, so for 10 years I would interview. There were some that, we did have to, overall I think we had really good luck. I never had to, I think there was one investigator that we did have to let go. But other than that, sometimes we would talk with workers that might have been struggling or having difficulty, kind of work with them. But I think there was just one that we did have to let go.
And you've had experience working with other departments outside of the elderly service, doing your own organization?
Absolutely. It took a lot of collaboration because we were responsible for investigating all suspected elder abuse and neglect in 11 towns. So many of our reports came from the police, the fire departments, from hospitals, doctors' offices, VNAs. So every day, when I was screening reports, and we would get on average, like over 100 reports a month. So So we would, and those reports came from mostly mandated reporters in the community. So it's the eyes and ears out in the community that was definitely where we did most of our work. So being out there in the community, talking with the police, talking with firefighters, going out and doing joint visits with them as well. If there was an elder at risk, an elder, making unsafe decisions and they were worried about their safety, we worked very closely with the police, fire departments, council on agings, nurses, doctors.
We've talked about your highest achievement, at least what you feel the advocacy is, and what is the worst experience you've had?
I guess the hardest part about the job is, even though I understand people's right to self-determination, watching people that continually, I think, continually put themselves at risk, and sometimes it's hard to see them living unsafely or dangerously to the point where it can have, real, such consequences. So for an example, I remember working with one senior where we tried so many different approaches, trying to work with them to take their insulin where they absolutely refused. So, we can't force people. People have, even if they're making poor choices, they have the freedom of choice. But then to watch this person deteriorate, and they ended up having some legs amputated, that was hard.
Okay, thank you. All right, Gordon?
If I was going to call one of your references, what do you think the word that they would use to sum up you as a person?
I think they would say dedicated, hardworking, fiercely passionate about my job. I take my responsibilities very seriously. That I get along well with others. When I set goals, I'm very tenacious. And I'm able to get things done. So I think I was pretty successful when we did have to set up goals within my department, and trying to juggle so much work when, workers are, stressed. They have caseloads that are beyond what they really should have, but yet the budget is so low. So just trying to work smarter, because I know they all did work hard, so it was kind of like, okay, how can we work smarter? How can we be more efficient? So I think they would say that, I was pretty successful in my position. In 2012, I was awarded the Employee of the Year, and I think that kind of spoke to trying to go above and beyond.
Have you toured our Council on Aging?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah, it was nice, and I had an opportunity to meet with Susan Lotless, so she was able to give me some information about Halifax and how the Council on Aging has been going, and I know it's been a difficult year and a half, of course, with the pandemic, and everywhere, it's been crazy. But yeah, and it sounds like the hope is that eventually it's going to expand, because I know right now it's a great building. I love the historic piece of it. I love historic buildings. So it was nice to see. It's kind of like a home environment, very a warm and welcoming Council on Aging, which I really liked. Yeah, and I would imagine as, baby boomers, are aging, that eventually, there is a plan that, the building could expand. I would imagine it's hard trying to keep up with all the needs and trying to maintain space for all the folks.
Yep, we do have a plan to look at right now to swap the Council on Aging with our museum building and do an addition at the museum and just swap where things are located.
Oh,
So we have
nice.
So we're looking into that right now and hopefully
great.
have something more to present in September.
Nice.
Are you CPR and first aid certified?
I have not recently. I did years ago, when I used to work with the developmentally disabled in a group home. I had to have all that certification, but honestly, so I was trained at one point, but honestly, it certainly has expired, so I would have to
And
be...
you're okay with taking that certification?
Oh, yeah,
again?
absolutely.
So one of Troy's questions that he likes to ask, and I'll steal it from, is at the Council on Aging, you work with a lot of different people, and most of the help is volunteers. So how would you work with a volunteer that at the Council on Aging that's not happy with the way things are going and is frustrated? How would you handle that?
I would first listen, talk with them, try to get an understanding of why they're unhappy, where that discomfort is coming from. And, I think a lot of people, want to be heard and want to be validated, and I think that's important. So I guess it would depend on the situation, but communicating, being a good listener, and trying to troubleshoot sometimes and say, okay, well, how can we, work on, the solution that you're hoping for, or is there another approach we could look at? So I guess it would depend on the situation, but certainly being able to talk with people and listen to them and getting their perspective.
Okay, thank you.
We kind of touched on it with your references, but if you had to choose one word to describe yourself, what would it be?
Dedicated.
Do you have any questions for us?
Again, I was curious, what the goals were for I know you had touched on how you guys are already talking about expanding.
Yep.
So I was wondering if there's any other goals regarding the Council on Aging. I know the past year, things have come to a standstill, I would imagine. So kind of transitioning back.
So, yeah, the building's been closed to the public since last, March 13th, I think. So, yeah, we'd be looking to open back up and try to start getting programs going. Right now, there's space at the old museum that's being used on the downstairs floor for the art program, if I'm correct, that was used last year. This room has been used. Our library director has allowed she's behind us.
Hi, nice to meet you.
She's allowed use of the conference room that she has over there and to set up programs. So it's not really in one building, but there's spaces around town that can be used to have programs. So I think that understanding what spaces are available and how to adequately use them is something that we'd be looking for in a director right now, because the project to expand is going to be hopefully a short-term goal, but it's probably a year or so away.
Oh, nice.
And with that, have you had the opportunity to speak in front of large groups before?
Yeah, I've done a lot of trainings. So I've done some group trainings at banks. I've gone to like police stations and done trainings there. I've actually gone to schools like Curry College and talked to their geriatric nursing within their geriatric nursing programs. So I taught a class there. Every year or every semester, I would show up and do a class. And I've talked at Council on Aging's. I think before I left Seltzer Elders, I think my last training was at Braintree Council on Aging, which we had quite a large group. And in addition to having the seniors in town, we also would have town government show up too. And every June is Elder Abuse Awareness. June 15th is Elder Abuse Awareness Day. So every year we would do some type of event where I would speak up and kind of give a talk.
Last question for me. When and if could you start if you were chosen to be the director?
I could start in a couple of weeks, because right now I am not working. I have a few things scheduled next week, but Yet right now, I'm not employed because I did take time off, and I just graduated. I went to school full-time, so I wanted to make sure I was able to give 100%. So I didn't work during the past 2 years when I did go back to school. So right now, I am not working. I just graduated.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ashley, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Any other questions for us?
I was curious how many seniors are in. I did kind of Google to look at Halifax. I got some of the basic demographics, but I was just curious if you could speak a little bit to how much you're able to reach out to the seniors, like the percentage of seniors that get involved with the Council on Aging.
Joe?
No, I think the question,
How many seniors are involved in programs and stuff at this point?
how many people use the senior center programs, in the sense of how many people from the town who are seniors are participating, either visiting the Council on Aging or participating in programs and things like that?
Quite a few. We have quite a lot of activity across the street. Many programs. We have outreach programs, like Mr. Egan said, and we utilize the library. The park also has a hall where we have chair yoga, when we're allowed to go in. Quite a few people in this town, like the council. We have my senior center, which would have the exact figures on how many people do come over and use all the programs that we do have. Book clubs, sewing, quilting, all kinds of things that people in this town really like to do.
Oh, great. So a good response. Nice.
But there's more than just the seniors that are being served in town. There are family situations and single person people with illness, can't work. So they've reached out and touched a lot of people.
Nice. Nice, that's great.
Just trying to text Sue to ask the question of what the outreach number was. Do either of our Council on Aging Board directors have any questions?
I was going to say, I think, Joe, is it 1,500 seniors we now have in town overall? They're not all involved, but we also have a writing group. And sometimes we've had Tai Chi over here. So there are programs. I think given the scenario we've had, our current director, Susan, did a phenomenal job trying to provide services to our needy seniors. And so we've used the tent outside.
Yeah, I noticed. You got a group out there
morning
now.
coffee, the guys are over there for their morning coffees. But there's no question, I think if we had a better facility, that we could entice more people. Because having things in separate places is great for now. But in terms of really building a sense of community in the Council on Aging, just going to one building where you have everything there, would be so much better for them. So I like the fact that you have your experience with elder abuse. I think that's strong, so you're passionate about making sure seniors get the services that they really need to stay independent. That's, I think, a very strong quality in what you're saying, which is great. But we have a ways to go, but we're optimistic.
Great.
The support of board and town. I think the biggest thing for us is to try to build community support for the Council on Aging. So I think outreach programs to the community. We do have a generations group which tries to incorporate that and helps to support the Council on Aging.
They are the friends. They are the friends.
They are the friends group, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So that's helpful also. You know, So there's hope for a new scenario, but well, I think we've done very well given the limitations, especially with COVID. We couldn't host anything over there because the building it doesn't allow enough space.
Right.
So nothing could be held over there.
We also are very active in Triad, which is held at the police station once a month. And we have quite a few people that go over there to learn about abuse, for one, and many programs that the Sheriff's Department comes in with, and get a lot of information that way.
Do you guys work with Old Colony Elder Services? I'm familiar with Terry Quartz. She's the director for Old Colony Elder Services. So even though I was at Sulphur Elders, so my 11 towns obviously didn't include Halifax, but I worked closely with Terry Quartz, who's the director for Old Colony Elder Services.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming in. We
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
taking the time.
Thank you.
Did you schedule that last interview that that's going to be happening? The gal that did not show us the other night?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
I was just wondering whether the Lisa Leak who did not show Monday night, is she completely out now or is she being rescheduled?
We didn't reschedule her. I don't know what the board feels.
About that. Do you remember her from the last time? She did the same
did the same
thing.
thing.
You interviewed her the last time after having to reschedule a couple of times.
Yep.
Remember that? She was like one of the last and she showed up late for her. She rescheduled a couple of times and then she showed up late, but you did end up finally interviewing her.
Okay. I think at this time, I'm comfortable with all three that we've interviewed so far, so I think we've had a good,
I got conversation.
I think all three are very good job.
you can, Pam, it's good.
Sorry, I forgot.
I'm comfortable making a decision Tuesday night. You guys want to talk about Tuesday night? Do you want to take time to call references if you want?
Yeah.
I think Tuesday will be fine.
Okay. Probably do a priority of who you rank where and see where we go.
Well, I chose Joe. I chose Joe to be exact.
Okay. So next on the agenda is the reorganization. So
I move that Gordon Andrews be the chair for the next year.
is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I nominate Troy.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
And nominate, and Ashley, is it this year?
DeSessa.
This year? As clerk
Second.
for the board.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, next up, we have discussion of format for the Board of Selectmen. So what I wanted to talk about was having department heads come in once every 6 weeks or 8 weeks and give an update on what's going on with your department and what things are going good and what things need to be changed and how to make things more effective for you guys. I would like to see us create a spreadsheet of all the articles that were just approved and the ones that were previously approved, and that we can track what the estimated date of completion is for each one of those things, so that when we get to town meeting, we have an idea of how well we're doing on these items. I know that the ramp was something that has kind of fallen off, and was something we didn't really track really well, so I wanted to start to track where we are on these items. I know that like the cruiser purchases were delayed because we had town meeting so late, so and then I know there's issues with car parts and chips and all those things moving forward. So I think if we have some sort of tracking system, even if it's just an Excel spreadsheet with what we have for estimated dates of completion, and we get to check off each one so we know where we are moving forward. Another thing for the Board of Selectmen at town meeting would be to have up a display. So on one side where you get to see the motion that's being read. So if we have the motions on a PowerPoint connected up wirelessly to a display, we can have the motion that's actually being read at the meeting so people can see it, because following around what's printed and what's actually read are two different things. I also think having a display that the selectmen are controlling, showing a dashboard of the spending and how that, so we have a list of what we have for raise and appropriate, what we have for undesignated funds, what we have for stabilization, how much the Finance Committee is recommending to spend on the list, and just go through, and basically we could just do a spreadsheet with the pie chart that just updates as the meeting goes on, the spending goes through, and you can see, and you can estimate out what the tax bill is going to be based on what their recommendation is. And I just think that that would be a better visual. The spreadsheet that we put in there is nice, but I think if you add these changes, it'll make the ability for the board to present to town meeting. So, Sandy?
Yeah, all of these sound reasonable. There's a lot of things to work out, so I would like it if you would present this at a department head meeting.
Yep.
Maybe include the moderator so that we have more input from people who these tasks will be falling to.
Yep.
And more logistics on exactly how would that happen. Who would be updating the Excel sheet during the meeting?
Yep.
And how would that, I think you need to, I really think you need to present this to a department head meeting.
Okay.
Get input from your departments, because I'm sure that there will be objections, but I think the logistics of it really need to be worked out.
Okay.
It's something that's really hard to make a decision in this one moment.
Yep. That was another thing to bring up, is to have a department head meeting with the Board of Selectmen so that we start meeting again. COVID is pretty much going, the emergency is going to be over as of June 15th, so we're going to be open back up again. And I think having department head meetings 6 or 8 weeks would be enough so that we can give everyone a chance to talk to the board and let everybody know what's going on and communicate with each other and see what issues everyone's having.
The only flaw I see is how much this is going to cost. Actually, it's going to cost. We're going to continue to do the spreadsheets and mailings and all. There's a certain responsibility on the populace to read the material that we send to them. If they're not reading it on the paper, what makes you think they're going to read it on the display? And I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah, I just think at the meeting, when the board's working with the department heads to give them the motions, it would be nice if we put up on either a TV or a projector or something that, Charlie and Pam work really hard getting all those motions out, but sometimes the wording is different than what's printed. Mm-hmm. And it's in the audio in that room is very difficult to hear. So I think if you had it up on a screen where you could see and you just go through a PowerPoint slideshow.
I think town meeting will be much longer, because you're gonna have to stop, you're gonna have to fix, people are gonna say, wait a minute, I didn't see that, some people. I think it will definitely add to the time doing it.
Okay.
Because for years, the people get the warrants in the mail, and we as residents are supposed to read it. The motions have always been different. The money isn't always in there. You don't know if you're transferring, voting to raise, appropriate, under where it's coming from. None of that has ever been in the warrant that gets mailed out. So the motions on the floor have always been different, for my 12 years anyways. So that would be a point to think about.
Yeah, I just think that the audio in that room, I mean, I had to keep leaning over to try to hear what people from the floor were saying.
Well, I think a lot had to do with the masks. I don't think it was necessarily the audio. I do think it had a lot to do with that. People trying to speak at the, yeah. I personally, Charlie, Larry, and I had a very hard time because there was no speaker on the stage. So if in fact that's the case, a speaker on the stage would maybe be more effective.
The speaker was between me and Ashley Tuesday night underneath our table. So that speaker was supposed to be for you guys, apparently.
We couldn't hear, even I.
Yeah. So I just think if we add some visual to what's going on, people will be able to see it.
It might take a,
It's in the all-purpose room are a little bit better, right? And we're probably assuming that next town meeting will be back in the all-purpose room.
Yeah.
So, you know, that might help too.
it might make it so we don't have as many questions either. It could help if we put everything on the slides that, you know, like Barbara was just talking about stuff that's not in the warrant, where it comes from, all that. If we make it a point to have that on the slide so people can read it, that might cut down on a lot of the questions coming up to the microphone.
But I also think if the board has a meeting beforehand where we walk through and we ask, you know, if we post on the website, here's the bid for this article, and we do a page basically for each article. We ask all these questions at the Board of Selectmen meetings, at Capital Plan, at Finance Committee, but we're really not capturing that data. And we have to repeat that every time we go to do something. So if we captured that data and just posted it to the website and went through that at a Board of Selectmen meeting before the meeting,
Right.
we'd have the information so people would know where to go to look and how to get it.
Yeah.
At the pre-meet for this meeting, a week out, the board and the moderator, Larry, Mayo, myself, when we met, some of the articles weren't firm then, so that's still asking, they might not be firm until the day before with the figures and where the funds and everything are coming from. And then to have all the slides ready and whatnot, is an extensive going on besides what's already on Charlie and Sandy's plate.
I understand there's more work, but I think the work would make things move smoother. And you know, Charlie and Sandy and Pam are making that list of motions. If you do it in a spreadsheet, you turn it into an automated slide, it's really not that big of a deal. It's just a mail merge basically into the slide, and we can pull the information out. I just think if we start to use what's available to us, we can make things flow smoother. And Sandy updates the spreadsheet, Finance Committee gets that, they review it. I just think if that information is gone over by the Board of Selectmen in a meeting, where we have a special meeting, go ahead, Sandy.
No, I was going to say, in the past, the Board of Selectmen were always asked their recommendation
Yep.
on articles as well, and that's not happened for the last couple of years.
Okay.
I think that that's important, because the Finance Committee is giving their recommendation as far as if we can financially afford something. The Board of Selectmen should also be giving their recommendation on every article, so that the town knows where the Board of Selectmen stand.
That would be a good thing to put on.
I think that it was always the moderator would ask the Finance Committee their recommendation, and then the Board of Selectmen their recommendation. That hasn't happened for a couple of years.
Okay.
And what about a department head meeting? Because I know you guys meet a half hour before the meeting, and then finance committee meets half hour before the meeting, but as a department head, well, one, if you have the time, you have to choose between the Board of Selectmen and finance committee meeting right before the meeting. And for me to, try to work all day, and then, I have an hour or so between getting to town meeting, so to be at a 6 o'clock Selectmen or Finance Committee meeting is difficult. So maybe a department head meeting right before town meeting, but not that night, maybe like before or a couple of days before. Because I always say that I don't want to go to that meeting, but like I have about half hour.
I think that's a great idea.
I know that we really didn't have department head meetings because of the limitations in this room, and then we had issues with Zoom every time we tried to do that.
This year has been different, this year,
Yeah.
last year. But going forward, like you said, we have all those restrictions that will be lifted.
Yep.
And I think it is, because it's very important for the department heads too.
Okay. Does anyone
You
have?
want to set a date, any specific date for the department heads to meet or such thing to the zone?
A specific date. I think the week before we did it, like the Thursday before town meeting, that was the department heads. We have all motions by then, I think that would be ideal. Making sure all the department heads know what funding source they're supposed to be using, and, questions that have come up that maybe the selectmen have other questions on things that we
Yep.
pass on to department heads, so that department heads are prepared.
Okay. Okay, so we have vacancies on the Halifax Elementary School Committee and Finance Committee. And Dennis, are you there, or am I frozen? Dennis?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Dennis.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? So Dennis had sent in a message that he wanted to talk about the openings and what the process was.
Yeah, did you want me to just share that now, or the email that I sent in outline with that?
Which, do you want me to read the email, or if you want to talk,
Yeah, well, I think the email is fine. It'll keep it simple. And I appreciate the conversation that you were just having. I didn't want to interrupt, but I had some suggestions in terms of somebody who is both visually challenged, and if you talk to my wife, she will tell you that I'm quarterly challenged. I don't listen as well if I ever did. But I think there are some of those concerns that I would want to echo in terms of how challenging sometimes the town meeting can go. And just one note that I would make is I appreciate the idea of using technology to improve things. You might want to consider the idea, because of the sound, if there's a way to translate over Bluetooth earphones for those people who are having a tough time hearing might be helpful. I can never tell what direction someone is coming from when they're speaking, because they're all coming from the same speakers, most of them. So that's a challenge for me. And then lastly, I would say, I'm not being critical of the department heads, because I think it's very challenging and uncomfortable to get up in front of town meeting and present. But years ago, when I went to town meetings, we had a lot of people who would get up in the departments and the different committees, and they would make a really good presentation answering a lot of the questions that people are now asking. And I think that if we're not supporting the department folks in how to get up and present and helping them to present some of the construction the issues that are coming up, I think we're just going to continue to get a lot of questions, and it seems like they're very contentious, and I don't think they need to be. I think they're reasonable questions, but I think it should start with good, solid presentations, and if our department heads and committee members aren't comfortable doing that, then we should probably help them, support them in some way through some kind of training and helping them make presentations. But anyway, sorry about that. I would just, Gordon, I would say if you want to read the email, I just wanted a couple issues to ask about how the process goes forward, because I know I'm going to get questions of people who are going to ask me.
Okay, sure. From Dennis. Good morning, Charlie. I hope you are well. If this morning's select meeting will be open to the Zoom attendees, I plan on attending. If the public is allowed to give any input on specific agenda items, I would like to do so regarding the vacancy on the elementary school committee. If that is not possible, I would ask the select board via email a question regarding the candidates being considered. Specifically, will the select board consider the results in this past Saturday's election, i.e. the person with the most votes as runner-up be given consideration? Additionally, will the related experience of each candidate be considered in making this decision? Also, will any consideration be given to diversity of the candidate, given our society's building of awareness, diversity, equity, and inclusion issues? I hope the answers to my questions will be yes, and if not, I would be interested in the thoughts of each of the members on the select board. Thank you. Respectfully, Dennis Carmen, 228 Hudson Street. So, to fill a vacancy, it's a joint vote of the select board and the elementary school committee.
So I think basically the selectman has heard the voice of the populace. If the person came in second on the voting scale, they should get really good consideration, because at least you know they're interested in the position and willing to sit in the board.
Okay. So the people that are interested in the opening on the board, on the elementary school committee, should fill out a talent bank and let us know that you're interested, and then we need to put together a joint meeting with the school committee and with the Board of Selectmen to do the interviews and to have a vote. So how soon does the Board of Selectmen want to try to get that done? The next elementary school committee meeting is July 1st. So I don't want to wait that long.
Yeah, sooner than that. What's our next meeting, the 24th?
You're meeting on the 25th and then June 8th after that. If you're looking to do the talent bank forms and interview people, the problem is we're posting the agenda tonight for this coming Tuesday. So if you're asking for talent bank forms to be sent in, they have no time to do that. If you're trying to aim for the 25th, if you're aiming for June 8th, what you can do is, in fact, set a deadline for the talent bank forms, get them in. Pam and I can get agenda appointments set up for June 8th, if that's the date you'd like to go with. We'll have everybody in, we'll invite the elementary school committee in, and go from there.
Sounds like a plan.
That sounds like a good idea.
So June 8th,
Yep.
interview everyone,
Yes.
joint meeting with the school committee? What time should I set that? Because I've got to get the school committee members to post that meeting as well and make sure they're available.
We put in somebody for 7:30 already.
7:30 minutes and,
We're having the special session earlier in the afternoon.
oh, yeah.
So we can set it up for 6:45?
6:45?
Assuming, we'll look at the schedule again depending on how many people send talent bank forms in, but yeah, we can start off then.
Okay. And I will contact the school committee members. So we have an opening. So should I read do you want me to read the letters for the resignations for both?
Sure.
It's up to the board, I mean,
can just accept them.
Too many papers up here. You move to accept them, Troy? Troy
To
moved.
accept them and send a letter of gratitude for their service on the committees that they have served on as long as they have.
Okay. So that's a letter to Fred McGovern and to Allison Vance. Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have a request for the VFW.
Gordon, just on the finance committee, just so, obviously we have a vacancy, Fred is not leaving today.
Yeah.
But he did say that he is not intending to ask to be reappointed to the finance committee, so we'll have a second opening on that. But I know the finance committee has started doing interviews, in the sense of they've, I think, scheduled people for May 25th. I know we had another town bank form sent in either early or this week or late last week. It's been forwarded to the finance committee. Generally, for the appointed boards, you wait for a recommendation from that. For the finance committee appointments, we have to go back and check whether this is going to be one of the series of appointments where it's the moderator having a vote, the selectmen having a vote, FinCom having a vote, or whether it's just simply the members of the finance committee and the selectmen, each person having a vote, but we can check on that.
Okay.
It might be one way for one of the seats and one for the other.
Yeah.
Fred's would be a full 3-year term.
Okay.
So it may, we'll check with them on their schedule for interviews and when they're ready to make a recommendation. You might want to wait until June 22nd in that case, simply because if you're doing, depends on what the workload's going to be on June 8th, whether you want to try and do filling of vacancies and holding of interviews on both nights.
Okay. Okay, next up. Just so the board knows, it's 11:22, and we did have another meeting scheduled for 11:15 that we'll be late to. We have a request for the VFW Memorial Day ceremony.
We've done it in the past, and we've done a really good job of it. And what day does Memorial Day fall, Mr.?
31st,
So
Monday, 31st. If you want to do the same type of
the
program,
mask,
socially distant at the very least. I don't know, at that point, some of the mask orders will have been dropped. So, but I would think they'll still do a somewhat socially distant program, just like they did last year. They were out there for about an hour. They had a bagpiper there. I think there's a letter from the VFW in your packets here. We, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 6258, would like to request to be allowed to conduct a 30 to 45-minute Memorial Day ceremony on the front lawn of Halifax Town Hall. This would include a military bagpiper, honor guard, several veterans. They would honor their fallen comrades and play for the public on the front lawn on the morning of May 31st, Memorial Day. That's Monday from approximately 9:30 to 10. Also request to be allowed to use our speakers on the front patio of the town hall, which will require us to have one of the front town hall doors open to us during a court. Thank you for your consideration. David Walsh, Commander.
I'll move it.
I second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. And then we have requests by Connecting Rods for entertainment license for weekly car shows at Walmart.
Have we heard from them?
That's what you're hearing from right now. I believe you have the form. Pam, you gave me a copy of that?
Yep, I have it.
So in your packets, you have the entertainment license. They have met with the Board of Health, I believe, gotten the necessary okays from them.
No,
says
they're
it's
waiting to get the
contingent.
certificate of liability, and she actually just came in, and she went up to see Peggy, so I don't know if Peggy said that will be okay, but I told her that I will not release the license until we get that, and then I might get it tomorrow, night.
Okay.
She put it up.
Yeah, sure.
So we can approve a contingent on getting that liability, certificate of liability insurance.
So is there a motion to approve contingent on the certificate of liability being presented to the Board of Health.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
All right.
Okay.
They've jumped the gun because they had a showdown there last week.
I believe they said specifically it was an unauthorized, unofficial show.
Okay. So we need to adjourn this meeting and open the 11:15 meeting. So,
Gordon, before you do that, I'm remiss for missing the opportunity to congratulate Ashley on her election for well and her endeavors as a new select person.
Thank you, Dennis.
and Dennis, thank you for your service to the town as moderator the last 3 years.
It was a small stint. There's a lot more people in the town who've done a heck of a lot more, and they deserve a lot more thanks. So, but thank you, and you all have a great morning.
You too, Dennis.
You too.
What's the 11:15?
What's it?
Contracts. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right.
All right. And then we can just stay on. May 20th, it is 11:27, and we are opening the 11:15 Board of Selectmen meeting. On the agenda is public session, vote to go into executive session on contract negotiations, sergeant, patrol officers, firefighters, highway, mixed unit, police chief, fire chief, all unions at Silver Lake Regional School District and Halifax Elementary, as discussion strategy with respect to collective bargaining in an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town. So the meeting's open. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. Ashley?
Yes.
Troy?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay, so we will not be coming out of executive session with any, Charlie, how's that termed?
For any public announcements.
There'll be no public announcements afterwards. Thank you, everyone.